The original Destiny was one of the most divisive games in gaming history. There seemed to be a clear split of extremes between those who spent thousands of hours into the game and those who put very little time into the game because they found it an incredibly repetitive and an incredibly soulless experience. One of the most heavily criticized aspects of the original game was its lack of story, which is why it was one of the most prominent questions leading up to the second game. Did Bungie actually make any improvements to the story? Did they quite frankly make an effort? Well, I'm pleased to say actually that I found the second game to have a much better story. It was told in a much more coherent manner. There was actually a purpose outlined to the story from the very first mission. Earth is immediately under invasion from a Cabal Empire invasion force led by their Emperor Ghoul. It immediately gives a much better spectacle as a big invasion force is towering and just surrounding the Earth. This straight away makes you care a lot more for the story compared to the first game. As well as having a great spectacle, you also feel a lot more emotional weight because the game does a much better job at showing the actual devastation caused by the battles. It actually shows some of the human loss and the actual effects that it has on the local community and the actual human civilians who aren't guardians. This makes you care a lot more for the story.
Follow the path from there. It will lead you through the hangar to the plaza. I'll take care of these people. If the Cabal want war, give them.
Destiny 2 achieves all of this within the first mission of the game. It creates a great spectacle and it gives emotional weight and punch, which it never achieved in the first game. This is a great improvement that Bungie has made in the campaign of the second game. But what really ties it all together is the amazing soundtrack. It is truly beautiful. It is one of the best pieces of music I've heard in any game ever. I'll particularly like to highlight The Journey and Inner Light, which are the two best soundtracks in my opinion, and something that I would highly recommend for all of you to actually go out and listen to.
Guardian, are you still with us?
We're fine, but the Traveler!
That's why we're here, to stop this madness. Ikora and I are converging on the rally point. Cade's already there.
We'll use the Vex teleporter to jump to the Traveler, if we make it there alive.
We've got your back.
Welcome back, Guardian. Glad you could join the party. Red Legion's using these energy barriers to funnel us into kill boxes. I can hack into the grid and knock it down for short stretches. Stand by.
The mission structure for the second Destiny campaign is also a lot better than the first game. In the first game there was an obvious template for the missions. You take a ghost somewhere, you either has to scan an object or open some sort of door, and then you would have to survive 3 waves of enemies, with normally some sort of bullet sponge boss at the end. This was repeated throughout the campaign and it got quite frankly very repetitive and also quite dull. The second game is a lot better. It is far more creative and there's a lot more variation in the types of missions. There are quite a few missions, for example, that focus on vehicles, where you end up having to either escape through a vehicle or assault your way through a whole barrage of enemies.
This road leads to the center of the arcology. We'll need a way out once we get there.
The missions even use the elementals, which is one of the most creative aspects of the game. The fact that it uses your environment in order to affect your gameplay and make you think differently in order to proceed through the particular mission and how you're going to defeat the enemies in front of you.
So, the only way to get where we're going is out there. We can do this. Stay in the shadows. The shadows!
I really enjoy the characters in Destiny 2. They came across as a lot more genuine and, quite frankly, a lot more memorable than the first game. In the first game, I probably couldn't name any character that I encountered during the campaign, either because there were very few of them, but also because they were not memorable. But in the sequel, the characters are a lot better. They're a lot more memorable. Zavala, Ikora and Cayde in particular come across as very genuine and real characters. They're clearly a bunch of Guardians who, quite frankly, had a lot of experiences with each other, and although they are very distinct and different in their personalities, you can sense a genuine friendship there.
Ikora, if you tell me this is a practical joke, well, it kills me to say it, but I would be really impressed.
Impressing you, Cayde, is the easiest thing I'll do all day.
Let's get serious, people.
Zavala, this is my serious face. Can't you tell?
Bungie has also taken a step forward in regards to its villain Ghoul. Ghoul comes across as a genuine and powerful threat. This is a great improvement over the first game, where the villains very rarely felt like a challenge or very rarely felt like any sort of viable threat. But more than that, Ghoul is also a great improvement in that you actually know what his purpose is, what his actual goal is, what is it he is trying to achieve.
This is why I have claimed your planet, and why you still live. The Traveler will choose me, Speaker. And you are going to tell me how.
I've spoken a lot about the positives of the characters in this game, but unfortunately that is not the case for all of them. Not all of them come across well. Not all of them, quite frankly, look like they're needed or required. Not all of them feel real. There's one character above all others that, quite frankly, feels like a prop, like an empty vessel. I'm sorry to say that one character is you. It's your Guardian. Your Guardian is completely silent through the whole game. Through the whole campaign and story, your Guardian will not utter a single word. The character just doesn't feel real. It feels like an empty vessel, a prop, just there to shoot and point. Point, shoot, point, shoot, point, shoot. That is all your Guardian ever does. Even in the cutscenes that's supposed to progress the story, your Guardian is silent. Your Guardian doesn't say a word. It doesn't interact or with any of the characters. It is unbelievable. Why Bungie has done this is beyond me. This isn't new to Bungie. They did a similar thing with their flagship franchise Halo. But even then, Master Chief, although not a vibrant personality, let's not kid ourselves, Master Chief still came across as a badass. Master Chief still spoke. Master Chief still had some sort of personality. He was a strong silent type, but he spoke. You still felt like the Master Chief was real. This is not the case with your Guardian. Your Guardian feels completely empty. It's such a shame that I never really cared about my own character. I never cared about the Guardian. Your Guardian doesn't even have a name. He's just referred to as a Guardian. It is very disappointing. The aspect of your Guardian is probably the relationship with his ghost. There's basically none. Your Guardian is basically a mute, and your ghost is just an assistant who's there to speak for you. That is it. You've seen the whole dynamic between a character and an AI companion been done before numerous times in other games. Again, Bungie did that with Halo, but they did a much better job with that. The Master Chief and Cortana felt like a genuine partnership. It felt like they genuinely cared for each other. It's also been done in other games. Titanfall 2, I played that recently. Cooper and BT felt like a genuine partnership. And that was a game similar to Destiny in that the original game was criticized heavily for not having a story, for not having much characters, and they made a great improvement with the second game. This is something in this regard that Bungie have not done well. The Guardian, your Guardian, feels unneeded. The relationship with the Ghost and all other characters is basically non-existent, and the fact that even if you took out your Guardian from all of the storyline cutscenes and it would make no difference is the most damning verdict in regards to this.
Quick, hurry, come on. I don't know how long this portal's gonna stick.
Cade? What have you...
Stop. Look. Long story, and it may look like I don't know what I'm doing, but I do. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. Killing the power source at the origin point should break the loop and get me out of the portal system. Have you got that? Say you've got it. Say something.
Fine, I'll say it. We got it, Cade. Now, how did you...
Oh, my cotton socks! Did you not hear what I just said?
I'm guessing this is why they don't like him leaving the tower.
Now I think I know what Bungie would say if they had to respond to why the character is so basically silent and empty. They would give the usual response that they normally give. Oh, we want you to feel like you're the character. That's why we intentionally don't add any sort of personality or any sort of character traits to your character. But then here lies the problem. The character creation mode, where you even design your character in order to sort of make it like yourself, is poor. It was one of the things that were quite heavily criticized in the first game, yet I don't think the second game has made much of an improvement. The choices are limited, considering there's going to be probably millions of people who play this game, and although there are different types of characters you initially can start off with, the templates and the choices are limited. When I picked my character, a male human, there was hardly any faces to choose from, hardly any different hairstyles to choose from. I think there may have been 10 faces, maybe 10 hairstyles. And even when I travelled around, I saw there were other characters who looked very similar, if not completely identical to me. It's one of the reasons why I immediately made the choice to just keep my helmet on the whole time, because hey, at least then I'd stand out a little bit from the crowd. Another aspect that was criticised in the original Destiny game was the fact that the bosses were all just basic bullet sponges, that there was no sort of tactics required or any sort of strategy needed, that it was all just a case of keep just piling away, shooting away, and unfortunately there's still examples of that in the second game. There are still enemies you encounter in the game, in the campaign, that just don't really feel like there is any strategy, any real tactics required. You just need to avoid their shots and they just keep shooting away. And it just sometimes gets a bit dull when you do that. There's no sort of when there's no sort of intelligence required, when there's no sort of strategy required for some of the enemies, it's quite disappointing. I will however say it is nowhere near as bad as the first game. There are not that many sort of bullet sponge enemies in this campaign, but there are a few examples and it does get a little irritating. There is no difficulty setting for the campaign. This I find a little annoying because, quite frankly, if you play the missions at the recommended power, they tend to be a little bit too easy, to be honest. There aren't too many missions that prove to be much of a challenge. It's because the AI of the opponents is not too high. They don't really use too much strategy or tactics, and so if you're at the recommended power or even above, you end up breezing right through them. Sometimes you can even run right past them and they won't even bother attacking you. This is disappointing because although I guess they're trying to make the game accessible to more casual shooters and guys who are new to the game, they should have applied difficulty settings so that you can increase the challenge and maybe make it a lot more of an obstacle and a challenge for those who were more experienced with Destiny and with shooters in general. I was disappointed in the fact that there was no real spaceship battle scenes or any chance for you to have any sort of space battles in the game. I'm sorry to say that similar to the first game, ships are just a glorified loading screen. There is no other reason for them, no other opportunity where you even see them. They are just there to look pretty as the game loads up the next mission. This is really disappointing, to be honest, especially as it was something that was again criticized in the first game, and yet it looks like Bungie haven't done anything to try and improve this. I'm not saying the game needs to become heavy in terms of space battles, but it would have been nice to just have a mission or two. Just a little snippet here and there. And again, this is not something Bungie would be completely inexperienced in. There was a mission in Halo Reach where they actually had space combat, and you know what? It was actually pretty cool. They were actually pretty good at it, so it's not without precedence.
Hawthorne already believes Zavala abandoned her and the survivors. Now that we're leaving, if we stayed, yes, we could help them survive, but if Zavala really is building a counteroffensive on Titan, we can save them all and take back the city.
My overall thoughts on the campaign of Destiny 2 is that I think Bungie have definitely taken a step in the right direction. The story itself is a lot better than the first game. Most of the characters are a lot better. The soundtrack is simply beautiful, but there are unfortunately some problems that exist from the previous game. Your Guardian is, quite frankly, almost not needed. He's just a prop to take the story forward a little bit, just there for you to shoot. The other aspects are also disappointing. The difficulty was not high enough, nowhere near high enough. There's no real space battles. The ships are again a glorified loading screen. But overall, I think it is a good campaign. Not a great one. I think they certainly have potential to make a great one if they improve on some of the aspects I've highlighted. But overall, I give the campaign of Destiny 2 a score of 7 out of 10. This means that it is good. It's definitely, I think, worth playing, and I think that it will be enough to give you a good few hours of gameplay. I don't think it's something that will get players who hated the first Destiny game to become die-hard gamers of the second. I don't think that they're gonna start suddenly playing thousands of hours now as a result of this, but I do think there's now enough value for you to at least get 40 to 50 hours of gameplay, even if you're not interested in some of the raid and end game content. Thank you very much for listening. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you very much.